Welcome to Leaders Recon, where we discuss leadership, warrior skills, and other unique opportunities within the G3 Leader Development Branch. Today we're talking about a subject which is near and dear to my heart, H2F, with none other than Captain Short, the program manager, I guess, for H2F across the 54 here.
Yeah, for right now at least, yeah. Yep.
So I guess it's been a while since we've done one of these podcasts, and you've been pretty busy. Can you give us kind of an overview of like where does H2F stand today?
Yeah, definitely. So there's been a lot going on, and there was a lot of pre-work that really went into getting to this point. So in FY20, we did a ton of market research. We actually traveled the country to get with a lot of the leaders in industry and academia to figure out what was out there for the Guard and what opportunities were going to be available as we worked through this problem set. And initially it was kind of determined that hey, look, the active component model is just not going to work for the Guard. That's more of a green suitor solution, facilities-based. You have a captive audience more times than not. So, right off the bat, we said, okay, we have to know what we're working with and see what's out there. So we traveled the country. We went and saw multiple sites that are working in the human performance optimization realm. And then
you worked with some cool people, right?
Yeah, we've talked to whether it be pro sports, large universities and colleges, and we've gotten to see a lot of really great solutions to this exact problem. And so, really the narrative then became that we don't need to recreate the wheel here. We just need to jump on the wagon that's already rolling. And so that really positions us in a place where, as we started looking at it, we thought maybe we were at a disadvantage with H2F implementation. I think now the consensus is and the vision is that we can be leaders in innovation for coming up with all these different solutions and all these different ways to tackle the problem, and we can be the conduit for innovative solutions to help facilitate the H2F program across the Army and really human performance optimization across the DoD. So getting into where we're at now is basically FY21 is a planning year. So there's project officers and NCOs in all the 54 states and territories, and they are working on their state-specific needs or addressing and determining what those state-specific needs are, conducting the analysis on how to address those, and then coming up with solutions, which basically gives us their requirements to implement H2F in the out years. So at the end of this fiscal year, we're going to collect all that data, build it into an Army National Guard-wide requirement, and we'll report that up to Army senior leaders so that they can make a determination as to how we're going to fit into the greater H2F scheme and plan.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot of data analysis right now, but what are some of those, I guess, emerging tools that are available to leaders, that are looking to scale up how they're integrating H2F within their formation?
Yeah, so there's basically 4 courses of action that this all comes down to. So the first one is commercial off-the-shelf solutions with contracts. So that's going out and finding companies and businesses that are basically already tackling this exact problem for whether it be, Fortune 500 companies, or maybe they work with sports teams. But those vendors, those commercial off-the-shelf solutions are kind of a one-stop shop to come in and more or less run your H2F program. So that's one course of action. The next course of action is partnerships or contracts with colleges or universities. What we've found as we've delved into the collegiate atmosphere is that there is a strong appetite to work with the Army National Guard, work with soldiers, because it's mutually beneficial. So not only does it help the state implement H2F as a program, but it gives their students hands-on time to actually practice their craft before they get out to the field. And they have all the resources at their fingertips, whether it be for data analysis or equipment or anything like that. So that's an exciting opportunity as well. The third course of action is maybe like a regional provider network. So maybe there's some sort of network that's available in your region that provides services, or maybe as a contract solution, or a facilitator for you to find solutions that work for your state. And then the last one is basically a hybrid. So if you look at your large states like California, Texas, one commercial off-the-shelf solution may not be able to service the whole state. There's a lot of soldiers there. So maybe for a portion of the state, or maybe for, like, if you're looking at their RSP, they might go with a commercial off-the-shelf solution for that. But in other parts of the state, they may go with a partnership with a college or university. And then on top of that, they may have contracts with, whether it be for equipment or, wearable devices or data analysis. So I think the hybrid solution is probably going to be a fit for most, but some other states are finding, as we'll see shortly, are finding exciting solutions across all those courses of action.
Yeah, so as you alluded to, we're getting ready to bring on several states that each are doing these different courses of action that you mentioned. Before we, I guess, dive into those discussion with, those subject matter experts across the country, what are some real world practical examples that you can give us of like, hey, here's how, from your foxhole, H2F has been started to be implemented or is being implemented in, a unit. And these are some of the, real world results or benefits that we're seeing from it.
Yeah, so, as you said, we're going to talk to some of these states in a minute, but we'll talk to Massachusetts, who they've gone with a commercial off-the-shelf solution. And that company that they've partnered with is called O2X. And as you'll see shortly, they are getting not only the statistical data that proves that, hey, we are seeing an increase in ACFT, APFT pass rates, we're seeing a decrease in height weight failures, we're seeing increased morale and mental wellness, all these different things. And then they're also seeing the less tangible of soldier buy-in, people are excited about it, et cetera. Then you have some other states out there that are, pursuing the college route. So you have like Connecticut is doing some work with their local colleges and universities. You have Georgia, who's, they actually are working with multiple colleges and universities, or at least laying the groundwork for that. And basically creating a network of colleges right there that is going to support their H2F program. And obviously with COVID and whatnot, some of that is getting delayed a little bit, but that is the plan as they're rolling through it. And, that I think the benefit that we're seeing from those states is that at the very least, even if they're not running the program for them, having that reach back to subject matter experts has really empowered the states to make sure they're headed in the right direction as they implement their programs. And then with, some of these states are doing internal programs on their own, which are more of a hybrid model. So they're saying like, hey, we're going to create a POI, we're going to hire, contractors maybe to fill some positions, or maybe we'll bring some people on ADOS orders or put some AGRs in there. And so like Kentucky, Connecticut, again, they're more of a hybrid, but they created a program of their own supported by a college or university. Washington State, they're going to talk to us about how they did the same thing. And, they're seeing success as a grassroots campaign because it's built around whatever their specific needs are. And, they get that soldier feedback and soldier buy-in that way. So, across the board, we have about 20 states right now that are piloting different versions of H2F, whether they're piloting a full-blown program or they're piloting an aspect of H2F like a wearable device or a data analysis app or anything. So we use all of that information to then feed into the states and the country at large so that they can see, hey, what can I pull from for best practices to create my program? And really, I think the hard part is making sure that we get everybody on board. But once they get all their leadership on board and everybody moving in the same direction, it's been widely positive and positively received by the soldiers.
Well, and as you've mentioned before, like there's the benefits of H2F are beyond like, I feel like, a lot of people, including myself, think H2F, we think ACFT, we think that physical fitness, but, we're getting ready to talk to these folks and I'm sure they'll talk about, retention benefits. They'll talk about the wellness benefits from the health side as an individual, in your application to civilian life. And so,
yeah, it is easy to get caught up on H2F just being a physical fitness program, and it's not that. There's actually 5 pillars of it, which cover everything from sleep, nutrition, mental wellness, spirituality, all that stuff, and physical fitness. So, I think that it's important for everybody to know that this isn't just to increase your APFT pass rates or your ACFT pass rates. This is to empower your soldiers to reach their fullest potential, give them access to subject matter experts, 24/7, and give them all the tools that they need to be successful in uniform, out of uniform, and through retirement and beyond. And so the beauty of the position that we're in right now is that we don't need to implement the H2F this year, this FY. This is just a research and development year for the states to determine what they would need to implement H2F. So that way the senior leaders can actually say, okay, this is what this state needs. This is how much funding it will take for them to implement this program. Oh, and here's the why. Here's,
So what behind it?
yeah. So they say, okay, well, why do they need this much money? Oh, well, here's their plan. And so really that's the focus this year. Some states, like we said, are piloting some stuff, and that's great, and it's a huge data pool for us to pull from and best practices, and that's been amazing. But all in all, this year is all about sitting down and saying, what do we need to do to address the data shortfalls and the hot spots and the gaps that we have based on the analysis of the data.
So I guess without further ado, we'll roll right into our first state, Massachusetts, which is doing contracting off the shelf.
Yep, commercial off the shelf solution, and a lot of great feedback from them, and I think everybody will be very interested in what they have to say.
We're doing this one a little bit differently, bringing on some subject matter experts from the various states to talk about how they're implementing H2F, following some of these things that you've mentioned. First up, we have Massachusetts with us. Major Murphy, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having the team and I on. We're excited to share the great work that we're doing with our Warrior Resilience and Fitness here in the Commonwealth with the rest of the nation.
So you've really taken like a different approach to this using contracts and third-party solutions. You want to kind of give us a little bit of a brief overview of what that looks like right now?
Sure. So we actually started our Warrior Fit, which stands for Functional Intensive Training, in FY18 with a workshop for 50 soldiers. And that was done in concert with our state leadership. And primarily the target audience there was individuals who required a waiver for reenlistment because they were not meeting either our height, weight, or our APFT standards at that time. It was a great success, but we also recognized that we wanted to be able to expand that offering to more individuals and eventually to our total force. That led us to applying for the Warrior Resilience and Fitness Innovation Incubator funds in FY19. And we were funded that year, and that allowed us to bring on additional folks and expand. So internally, we did 2 iterations of Warrior Fit in FY19, and towards the end of that year, we were able to use a contracting solution and found a local vendor who had an Eat, Sweat, Thrive methodology that fit well with the H2F principles and total force fitness. And that allowed us to come up with a 3-tiered model. So we had still our individuals who received significant in-person instruction and peer mentor. Then we also had the ability to do a sampling of the total force. And so we had about 1/5 of the force that went through some different assessment screenings, both in person and virtually. And that gave us a better sense of where we were at internally in terms of all of the different total force fitness domains. And then we still had a group of the total force, which was primarily instructed by our program implementer at the time, which was Dr. Meg Garvey. And she was doing some in-person workshops with each individual unit as requested, as well as pushing out content through social media and to our other tools through PAO, et cetera. In FY20, we continued with that 3-tier model, but it became a joint program. We started having the opportunity to include AIR as well. So we also expanded in FY20 to add a half-time registered dietitian, which was something based on the feedback we received from both our soldiers as well as leadership, an area with significant interest that we thought we could continue to expand upon.
So I mean, I know that's like a little bit of a different approach there, using those third-party solutions with contracting. How did that work? Or I know Captain Short, we talked about this a little bit with like integrating foreign entities into the force. How was that distracting for soldiers, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think that the professionals with O2X were extremely flexible in kind of meeting our unit leadership as well as our soldiers and airmen kind of where they were at. Initially, we had to ensure that folks understood that this was a kind of a pilot program, hopefully moving towards a program of record within our force structure, and it wasn't an outside entity coming in to offer them a service that they would then have to pay for. That this was completely included within our program here in the Commonwealth. So once that hurdle was overcome, we really had some great success. We have Devin, if you want to jump in here as well. Devin Smith is our current program integrator here and Sergeant Major Societis, if you want to speak from the leadership perspective. We've had a lot of success with meeting with unit leaders and being invited to bring programming in at the small group, team, platoon, company level. And then we're hoping with COVID mitigation efforts that we'll be able to do some larger scale events later on in this year.
Sure. And Devin Smith here, program implementer, like Major Murphy just mentioned. So I'm a strength and conditioning specialist by trade, so certified strength and conditioning specialist, and then my cohort has a registered dietitian. So what we've been doing at the unit level, as far as implementation, is we've been able to work with some of the full-time guardsmen and sort of develop some weekly ACFT familiarizations and kind of just pushing further from a weekly, daily basis where we can, and then for the traditional guardsmen, just doing more of the virtual resources. So we've been able to integrate a little bit more on IDT weekends. So we've been attending ACFT diagnostic trainings and just really being able to implement from there.
Roger, I just want to speak just from the leadership side of the house. So when this first started out, we did a really good job of advertising it and getting it to the command level so they knew what was going to happen and we knew what we're going to be offering it to them. Every commander out there was welcoming, and having that subject matter expert into our units to help address our issues with readiness and fitness really went a long way over the past 2 years.
All right, so I'm just going to ask a few follow-up questions based on some of the information that you guys just gave us, and feel free for anybody to chime in. One of the things I heard you talk about, which I think is actually a best practice and really something that's unique to the Guard, is partnering with our Air National Guard units out there. So, a lot of states are Army and Air, and both entities are looking for optimization in human performance. So if you could talk us through how that relationship has worked and maybe illustrate a little bit about how that's a best practice that other states could utilize.
Sure. So here within our state, I'm our director of Warrior Resilience and Fitness, but Sergeant Major Societis on the Army side is our deputy director. And then last year we brought on Chief Master Sergeant Preston on the air side. I think having 2E9s as the leads has been a great kind of force multiplier for a really small program where this is an additional duty for all of us, and allowing us to get some buy-in from our air side as well. Human performance optimization is not unique to the Army or the Air Force or the Navy. It's a human construct. We all want to do better, go longer, work harder. And human performance optimization across all of the different domains allows us as human beings and then us as warriors to do that. Our tag is Air Guard. His daughter is Army Guard. I think that helps us as well to identify that this is a total force. And when we say total force, we don't just mean Army, we mean Army and Air, we mean the entire Mass National Guard. And it's been well received in that manner. While we have different measures of how we look at items like physical fitness or height, weight, body composition, at the end of the day, we're looking for resilient individuals who know how to fuel their body for performance, who know how to sleep well and rest well, who know how to push their body physically, and who can execute their job with the best cognitive performance that's available. That's pervasive across all of our forces. And I think programs such as this allow us to execute that in a variety of different ways that will benefit us as individuals, as well as our military status and our communities and families back home.
That's great. And so you hit on some of the stuff that there's kind of a two-part question. So obviously what you're looking at is what is tangible as far, and everybody's talking about right now with holistic health and fitness, what's the return on investment? That's the big concern. So obviously you're seeing hard, tangible data that says, hey, this is a successful program, and that's how you're evaluating and those measures that you're using. So one, are you seeing that on the return on investment side with data, but also are you seeing a return on investment in the intangible as far as user acceptance or soldier buy-in? How's the feedback been from the soldiers? Are they, receiving it positively?
All right. So after each of our tier 1 events, we did soldier feedback, we did AARs, and all the data we collected was 100% positive feedback from everybody that participated. We even had soldiers trying to volunteer to help assist with FY21's training because they enjoyed it so much. And as far as results, our numbers were astonishing. So we had 93 people participate in FY20, and out of that 93, 26 of those soldiers had flags removed at the end of the 3-month training event. So we were able to not only remove flags, but we also improved everybody across the board. The average push-up increase was 18 push-ups per individual, 17 sit-ups, and the run scores across the board dropped an average of 5 minutes. So when we took all that data, we ran it, it made us realize how effective that program was. Soldiers leaving the program, a lot of them were talking about how they wish they had this sooner. They want their friends and their fellow service members to get involved with the program as well.
If you don't mind, I wanted to just caveat off of his question a little bit, and that was, talking about soldier buy-in. How was, taking this contracting approach, how did you guys hit the challenge there that we run into with soldiers, which is time? We only see them once a month on these IDT weekends. How have you seen that get integrated with the H2F?
So the way we integrated is we had that 3-tier system. So the tier 1 was the in-person. And what we did is we did it on off-drill weekends, and we had ADOS funding available to have soldiers show up for that. So they weren't missing any IDTs. They were coming in, they were training with us, and they were still participating with their unit training assemblies. The tier 3 and the tier 2, we participated with them at events. We came in, we did assessments on them, and then we gave them access to the O2X portal for that Eat, that Eat, Sweat, Thrive focus. So that's how we reached the largest portion of our populace.
So it sounds like you hit a high-risk population, and those were the in-person soldiers that would come off drill weekends, and then people that maybe just need to get pointed in the right direction had access and could help, kind of facilitate their own learning, so to speak.
Yeah, the tier 1 was our high risk. It was our flag soldiers. It was soldiers that were on the verge of being flagged, like a real low PT scores, real high body fat percentages. We also had soldiers that were postpartum as well as post-injury, coming off of profiles to get them back into the being able to pass an APFT.
That's awesome.
To speak to your question about data collection, we certainly have the most data on our high-risk population, those individuals that we consider tier 1, those 93 individuals. They were screened at an in-person event in conjunction with their PHA. They were screened at weekend 1, 2, and 3, and we have outcome data from where they were at that point in time. We have their last APFT and height weight of record from DTMS, as well as their height weight from their PHA event. And then we did in-body scanning at each of our foundation, and then the other 2 weekends as well. So we're also working with the Institute for Defense Analysis. We have a good deal of population health data for our tier 2 population, which was about 1,000 Army soldiers for FY20. Commanders loved that. They got a snapshot of where their unit was in terms of, do we understand what a work rest cycle is? Do we understand what fueling for performance is? How do folks feel about their subjective level of stress, fitness, and nutrition? They really liked having that. And it also took a comparison to the rest of the nation and the American populace. We looked at it, stratified data by age and gender. And so it was fairly surprising to a lot of our leaders to see how many soldiers were considered to be overweight or were obese. And a big surprise to them was the number that still used tobacco products, despite the known health risks and the decreases in human performance optimization that we see as a result of that. So we have had an opportunity to collect a great deal of data, which we're still in the process of analyzing, and we're actually hoping to publish that, submitting some abstracts to AMSIS and some of the other military specific journals.
That's fantastic. And that data is really going to be essential moving forward, as you well know, for implementation of H2F in the Guard. And, one follow-up question to that would be, there are some people who maybe say out there, we should be told, we should just be issued H2F. It should come, just like our TA-50, we should just get issued H2F and it should be part of a standard issue. If you could speak a little bit to the benefit of having that freedom to move on the battlefield and design a program or implement a program based on your needs as a state, and just kind of talk about those benefits of being able to look at your data and say, here's what we need and here's where we need it and here's how we're going to fix the problems that we have, as opposed to a kind of a one-size-fits-all solution.
Sure, and I'll ask Sergeant Societis and Devin Smith to jump in at any point as well. So we really did use that tier 2 data that we had about the end of Q2, beginning of Q3 of last year to inform how we built our contract for FY20. That allowed us to identify where did we need the most additional subject matter expert tie-in with our force. And when we looked at that, that came in the force of adding in a half-time registered dietitian. If funding weren't an object, we would have loved to have had a full-time registered dietitian on staff. But the biggest takeaway that we had when we surveyed that a little bit over 1,000 individuals was we don't know how to fuel for performance. Most folks had difficulty with completing a dietary recall, didn't necessarily know how many calories they were taking in a day, whether or not if they tracked macros, they weren't exactly sure how to do that. A lot of them didn't know necessarily what that was. There's a variety of different methods that folks can use to track what's coming in and how that is impacting their performance. And we just weren't using those tools. And so that was something that we recognized as a team that we wanted to bring to our force. In the way that we wanted to do that was to bring in somebody who had the ability to not only provide instruction to individuals on nutrition principles, not only do some live cooking classes for service members and their families, but who could also, in working with our Joint Surgeon's Office, hopefully get credentialed and do the Army body composition analysis with these individuals so that we can all get back in compliance with the requirements of FM 7-22, and really take that, teaching that evaluation and be able to prescribe a diet for folks who are struggling with how to do that in their own lives. We also looked at how do we increase the model for the total force, because as Sergeant Major had mentioned before, we had a lot of individuals who were really interested in the programming, heard about it from their friends, and we wanted to increase our total force impact. And so we looked at decreasing our tier 2, which was kind of allowing for that initial assessment and then giving everybody access to the portal and giving them a workbook and a textbook, actually. So we decreased that number down. We are going to continue to reassess those individuals that were in tier 1. They become this year's tier 2, but we increased our total force. So we have more individuals that will have access to the portal, which is now available as an app for Android and Apple devices. And we've increased our in-person presence with folks. Now, COVID's impacted that a bit, like it has for everybody else. And I know we're going to get to a question a little bit later where we're going to talk a little bit about how we have made that shift to more distance and online opportunities. But I think that actually fits really well with the Guard model. A good the Air Guard is different than the Army Guard in that sense. On the Army side, we're only between 10 and 15%. It's a full-time force between AGR, ADOS, and technicians. The air side's greater than 50%. But what that still means is the majority of our soldiers and airmen aren't available in a full-time capacity to receive these services, for example, on a base or installation. We have to meet them where they're at, which means at home and in their community. And this has really forced us in a direction to making that happen, probably much more rapidly than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, that's great. And you hit on a great point, which is that H2F, is about not necessarily holding somebody's hand through that cultural change, but teaching, you're creating cultural change through training and education and making independent soldiers that can make independent choices, away from drill, away from their leaders, so that they become more self-sufficient. So, I think that you're doing great work with all of that. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Folks have autonomy, and we can see gains in any area we want if we restrict their environment and their access. That's not reality, though. Folks need to be able to make meaningful change in a way that works within their family structure and within their work cycle. And we've got to help them find a way that works for them.
Absolutely.
Well, and Major Murphy, you kind of already hit on this a little bit, but, I guess through this growing process of, adjusting your tiers as you were talking about, what are some of your, I guess, lessons learned with going through the third-party solution system here that you've applied towards implementing H2F? Do you have some pieces of advice you give to those who were, maybe wanting to take the same approach that the state of Massachusetts is taking on how to, go about implementing it to get to that end result where we're able to provide, maximum amount of services to, the most number of guardsmen possible?
Sure. I think, Sergeant Major, you had prepared a response to this one, so I'll let you take this, and Devin or I can jump in as needed.
Sure, man. So with us, we emphasize command buy-in. We briefed the TAG, the land component commander, state CSMs. We got these commanders to buy into the program before we even really started it, which helped us a lot. Selling the program, I mean, it sounds crazy, but you really have to go out and sell this to the command teams. One of the big jobs that I did when I first came on to the program was getting the CSMs all involved. So all our battalion CSMs and brigade CSMs working together to try to make this happen. You really have to have people like Major Murphy running this program that really is passionate about it. If you just put somebody to try to put this together that doesn't have the drive and passion like Major Murphy does, it just won't be as successful. The whole crew we implemented with O2X, everybody works together. I mean, and that's really what it took for us to get this going.
Yeah, and I think it's also, what is your leadership interested in? We were able to look and implement total force fitness principles by first going after, those easy targets, which was for everybody looking at what can we do to improve readiness through APFT score improvement and decrease in height, weight, body composition flags. And so those were kind of our 25-meter targets, so to speak. We know that all of the total force fitness principles are important, but some of those hard skills versus soft skills, it's hard to measure sometimes the increase in sleep duration and whether or not that is restorative. It's hard to measure sometimes also, how much of a role spirituality plays in somebody's ability to perform at their optimal level. So those are some areas that we've continued to try and bring in. And leadership has been much more accepting of looking at some of those softer skills around the resiliency principles, around incorporating spiritual practices, around recognizing the need for education and training on sleep. We also look at things like breathing. A great number of folks says, well, why do I need to learn different ways how to sleep and breathe? Well, they absolutely have a tremendous impact on our ability to cognitively function, to recover, and to build muscle. And so we have to look at how do we teach from a holistic perspective and not just train for the one task at hand. We gain, insight and integration with the breathing by reminding folks they already actually know a good portion of some of the breathing exercises and training that we're doing. We bring them back to, when we look at the, schematics for how do we go to a range and what are some of the basic principles for rifle marksmanship. We know how to modulate and control our breathing. What we don't always know how to do is how to harness that and use it for optimizing our performance in a variety of different areas. And so we're trying to take an aspect or a learning that they have in one specific area and operationalize it across any task that they want to do. And that's something that's new and learning for many of our soldiers and airmen.
Just to speak to buy-in as well, just to kind of add a piece to that is, O2X, the contracting company, it's a tactical athlete performance company built by tactical athletes. They're all veterans that have started the company, know the company, and implement the company. So I think from our basis, we're, the company itself is started and run by tactical athletes. We're as subject matter experts, not all tactical athletes. We can apply our knowledge to the field, and I think that helps and assists with buy-in. And then I think another thing that helps with that is, the virtual resources and then the in-person resources that we provide are highly adaptable to the individual. So speaking to autonomy, these individuals are now empowered. These soldiers and airmen have the resources and the tools that they need to see how this best fits within their life. And then us as implementers are there to help structure and how best that's going to fit into that soldier and airman's day to day.
Yeah. And one other aspect that we haven't talked about is when we were working with our contracting office and looking at potential solutions, one of the things that was enticing about O2X's proposal was they already have a curriculum that's embedded within a lot of the fire and EMS communities. So, for example, all of our 68 whiskeys have an opportunity to earn CEUs that they can use towards their EMTB, or for our folks that have the paramedic, like our flight medics and some of our other individuals, they have the ability to earn those for their EMTB or their EMTP recertifications. There's also an opportunity based on what curriculum they complete within the app or the online portal to gain 2 credits from Roger Williams University. So I think there's some great additional opportunities that we've been able to sell command teams and our soldiers and airmen that are of a personal importance for them and not necessarily related specifically to their military MOS. Sometimes they are, sometimes it's not, but it's kind of a win-win for them, both in terms of their own knowledge and understanding, as well as a benefit for them personally and professionally.
Yes, ma'am. And you hit the nail right on the head. And that's an aspect that people sometimes forget about H2F implementation in the Guard is, and you've talked about it, but the effect that it's going to have not only in the Guard, but also within the communities. And that's where, something that we really have, an asset that we have at our fingertips here with H2F implementation is it's not only going to affect our formations, but it's going to positively affect our communities. So that's fantastic.
Well, and noting off of that, like it sounds like, from the discussion we've had so far, that the soldier buy-in has been super positive, and that really, the big point that it seems to be that you're making is that you just needed to show the data to command teams to get command teams buy-in to allow for, kind of program utilization across the force.
Yes, and as Sergeant Major said, I think that using our enlisted leaders to inform that has been a great help. I can get up and brief in CR2Cs. I can get up and brief at our LCC huddle. And sometimes, unfortunately, as officers, not everything makes it down to the level it should. We kind of keep it within a circle. And I think that's something that we're all working on as a total force. So bringing in both Chief Preston and Sergeant Major Societis as integrators within the Army and the Air, I think has been huge for us in reaching a great number of folks who have a leadership role, from the platoon through the brigade level. Majority of our soldiers and airmen are enlisted, and getting people that they trust to buy into this program is extremely instrumental in its success.
Yeah, and on a personal note, appreciate everything that you guys have done and all the information and feedback that Massachusetts has provided us to really blaze a trail for all the other states. and show what can be done with H2F implementation in the Army National Guard. So, we're truly thankful for all your efforts.
Thanks.
So, Mr. Harper, welcome from the great state of Indiana. So you guys had the unique opportunity to be part of the ForceCom field test here as you guys built, an internal program for H2F. You want to give us a quick rundown of, how that experience was moving through it?
Well, this was a great experience, a great opportunity to be part of a large initiative in its rollout stages. Obviously, this was a ForceCom pilot that had a total of 30 battalions that were tested. And most of these, 29 of them, were active duty. And so we had the unique opportunity to kind of be the one National Guard battalion to test this, but also look at different approaches that may be different from the active duty that the Guard needs specifically to be able to execute the holistic health and fitness program.
And sir, what were some of the things that, as you moved through, because some people may not be aware, you actually started a program in Indiana with the Indiana Wellness Directorate prior to even H2F really getting off the ground. So you had that backstory and that experience, plus your experience, with different initiatives in the Army. So as you moved with all that experience into the ForceCom field test, what were some of the things you were able to identify and pick up on that maybe would be individual to the Army National Guard and H2F implementation?
Absolutely. I think that there's some things that we can execute that are active duty based that worked well, and also things that we need to relook in the National Guard. But the things that we found most important came down to three primary topics, and one of those is really needing to develop that fitness and wellness domain. You're familiar with the total force fitness 8 domains of physical, nutritional, medical, environmental, spiritual, psychological, social, and behavioral. That physical piece is something that probably was lacking one of the most from a physical org structure standpoint. And so we felt like it was important to model something similar to the Master Resiliency training model, where they have this hierarchy structure. And so we just needed this in the fitness realm. And so we did that. We did Indiana Wellness Directorate initially. There's been, obviously, this is scalable to any sizes, but that meets the needs of any state. But what this accomplished, it really empowered us to be able to meet, find solutions, test solutions, and implement them in the state of Indiana based upon what our specific physical readiness needs were. And so we have a program director, program manager, similar to what the active duty model is proposing. We've also got a core contract officer representative that is fundamental in ensuring the position work statements are in place for these contractors when you bring them on board for the holistic health and fitness. That comes with several different contractors. You got strength coaches, physical therapists, occupational therapists, athletic trainers, registered dietitians. They're all going to need some contract oversight. And so having that ability on hand was a paramount and important. And I fill that role right now. We also look at budget analysts. I think that there's some funds that come with this, that came with the ForceCom package that needed to be managed and utilized. And so being able to have an internal source that was ready and available to be able to create the PRs necessary to execute these funds in a timely manner, the different methods of contract or procurement of this exercise equipment and the medical equipment that comes with it is all very, very important. And so it's fundamental to kind of have that in place. But that was one of the big things was develop this org structure, let's develop this hierarchy. And that was something we had in place before this H2F came on, was proposed to us. And so it was a quick and easy transition when that came. The second proponent probably would be the MFT hierarchy structure, ensuring that we've got soldiers in place that are trained at each echelon down to the company level. We have 2 per echelon that are trained MFTs, and they get routine synchronized training by the subject matter experts that the H2F brings and the Wellness Directorate brings. This is great. It's a fundamental approach, that the force multiplier that is needed to ensure that soldiers get this wellness message early and throughout their career, which I think is very, very important from a sustainability standpoint in changing lifestyles in health and wellness. The third step would be, obviously, I feel is important to have TAG or headquarter policy memos that drive soldier action, that allows soldiers the opportunity to come to where you're at, to seek us out and utilize the resources. By itself, it's hard when, soldiers are dispersed, and that's one of the main differences between the Guard and the active duty approach, is that our soldiers are dispersed and they're busy. They hold normal lives, normal working conditions. And so how do you motivate and how do you get that out there? So having these policies in place really helped to drive those, the function of what we're doing fundamentally.
Great. And you actually kind of bring us to our next point, which is, a lot of people, there are some people out there that think, hey, this should be a one-size-fits-all solution, and maybe it's just easier to have that package sent to you and you don't really have to think about it, and you're off to the races. But obviously the Guard approach is a little bit more different because it's a state-led initiative. And so if you could kind of speak to, from your perspective, the benefit of having that autonomy to looking at your state-specific needs and building a program around that. And then maybe some advice for somebody that's in the same position as you are, that's starting from scratch and going through that process.
Well, absolutely. I think it's very important to have that autonomy. Again, being empowered to develop your own solutions based upon the needs of the state is fundamental, and I think that comes foundationally with the wellness directorate or that hierarchy structure that provides that oversight and support. We've had, because of that, we've been able to create courses that directly impact soldiers' lives. And one of those is what we call the Life Fit course, or the Tactical Athlete Conditioning course. This is a 15-day move to learn course where soldiers that have been flagged for height and weight or physical fitness failures can come down and get this initially 10 days of really good hands-on training and the ability to talk and express themselves and their concerns and their challenges. They go back to their respected element for about 60 days, and then they return on a 5-day follow-up. And there we see significant changes. These soldiers that were probably at their end of life in the Guard and not wanting to really continue on, change to soldiers that become the highlight of their battalion, their companies, and a beacon of light for soldiers that may be struggling where they were at earlier on. That's just one approach. We have several other courses that we're able to put on that empowers us to be able to provide the solutions necessary. One of that is the ACFT. That's the huge, it's been a huge topic of conversation. Units requesting information, needing information, soldiers needing how to better prepare for it. This is such a much more of a dynamic test that the exposure to the methodology beforehand, and then providing foundational training to better prepare soldiers is only going to improve in all capacities of life, as well as the physical readiness. To those groups that are just starting out, I think you want to look at someone within your state that has the subject matter expertise in wellness and fitness, and in these different categories. It could active duty, of course, is using some Title V folks. We don't have that yet in the Guard, I don't believe, but look for those individuals that have that interest and desire. There's probably a few that you know of already, and so get those individuals to be that manager that can kind of lay out this hierarchy structure and figure out what needs they're going to have to properly lay this out and be the subject matter experts that they need to be able to find the solutions for their own state.
And one thing I'll add to that, and I'll hand it back over to Captain Carr here, but a lot has been made of the return on investment for H2F. And one of the things that Indiana has done a really great job with is talking about the value H2F brings in the sense of retaining soldiers versus the cost of having to recruit or assess new soldiers into the state. And if you just want to speak to that a little bit, and maybe about some of the other return on investment things you've seen, whether it be, data analysis or even just the less tangible soldier feedback and whatnot. But I think that you guys have really made a great point in regards to that retention piece.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. That's one paramount, I think, that's going to run across the entire 54. An important thing to retain soldiers. So you're not having to constantly fight the battle of recruiting, but it's been successful. We've done well on some of these programs. Again, going back to this, the Life Fit, it was found that we had about 25% retention rate from soldiers that were on their way out. These were soldiers that had been struggling with height and weight and APFT physical fitness for years, and they were put on 1-year extension waiver, and with that, they had to attend the Life Fit course, and were able to find themselves again, so to speak, and find that intrinsic motivation that motivated and made them truly beacons of light for their unit and other soldiers that were struggling with that. And so it was helpful to that cost alone, just to retain that soldier provides it's millions of dollars, and provides a resource to the state for us to be able to continue to look at and send soldiers to that may be struggling. And man, this was something that we started to uncover. It wasn't just a physical readiness concern. There's obviously a behavioral health component that may be lurking in that soldier's life. There may be a social issue. There may be financial issues that are all leading to these physical readiness concerns. And so here in the state of Indiana, it's easy because we have buildings that house the behavioral health right next to us, and financial readiness resources right next to us. And so we're able to reach across the building here and provide a warm handoff for all of those issues that are underlying to a soldier in their career.
So, and I guess I have two questions. One's kind of a follow-up on that, which is like, in a practical sense, could you give us a rundown? You've mentioned that Life Fit course a couple times. Could you give us I think like a overview real quick what that course is that you guys put together? And then on the back end of that, my second question is for those soldiers that we're not bringing in, that we're not seeing on a regular basis because we only see them, at IDTs or, virtually during an IDT even right now, how have you been able to implement H2F in, that limited, time, space environment?
Roger, thank you. one of the great things about Life Fit is again, it's a 15-day course. We've broken it up into two segments: a 10-day initial course, where then they go back to the unit for 60 days, 60 to 90 days, and then they return for a 5-day segment. The 10-day segment is built upon each day having several move to learn classes. We'll have subject matter experts come in, obviously the H2F personnel, come in and provide hands-on training, nutritional training. We've got a run clinic. We've got foundational movement clinics with the strength coaches. A lot of this is conducted in a little gym that we've been able to create here, a functional, a physical readiness gym that we've been able to create. There's other courses. There's the financial wellness. There's the BH piece that they'll come in and talk about. And obviously, if there's a more leader central focused, talk about what their potential is and leadership opportunities and how they can best influence soldiers that are around them. And then there's, of course, a methodology piece that comes into how they can create their own exercise programs given their unit structure and execute that on their own at home, and how successful is that. We've had great feedback. We get these continued success stories, soldiers just changing their lives and ultimately becoming those, realizing their pinnacle, their true self, the individuals they've wanted to be, and were just held back by some barrier. And so it's been a great course. Again, got 25% retention rate. The success rate from changing from failing to passing is even higher than that. You've got nearly upwards of 30-40% in just success rate in changing from failing to passing. Obviously, there's other reasons why soldiers don't want to retain and stay in long term, but from that population, we're making a huge impact, and it's been greatly successful. The other piece to this is COVID has been a great test of how we can utilize our H2F resources to soldiers that are in a dispersed environment. It's caused us to go from an in-person, 24/7 in-person course and structure to a more virtual wellness program. We've had a huge response as units went to virtual training. They were reaching out to have wellness courses taught, and courses that help prepare their soldiers for the ACFT, because we all know once this COVID thing dies down and we gain control, it's all going to be ACFT focused and the transition to this physical fitness piece. And so we've been able to do that. We have several different courses that our H2F team has been able to develop and teach. You have jumping and running clinics. You have at-home workout clinics, which has been interesting for folks. We got ACFT preparation, physical performance, ACFT injury prevention. You got nutritional pieces. You've got meals at home. Just a lot of different options. And again, it goes back to that we've been empowered. We can create these things because we have that internal structure that is self-confident in what it does and produces evidence-based programs that are going to be successful in the long run. The question is can we bring these programs into place, get them implemented, and start tracking long enough to see that fruit? And that's always a challenge, because a lot of times we want results quick, but this is a lifestyle, this is a cultural change that is going to take some time. And ultimately, I feel like that it is, and that we're seeing this now. You're seeing a different kind of group come out of AIT now that are better prepared for the ACFT. They're better. It's an interesting concept, and I think we're going to see this systemically across the force.
And sir, you hit on something that we've talked to the other teams about, and you've been you've been around the block when it comes to military fitness and have had a long career in this field. But you hit on the cultural change piece, and I just wonder if you could comment on the importance of seizing the moment at the, for these state teams and these project officers and all these H2F initiatives that are going on, the importance of seizing the moment. And have you ever seen in your career a cultural change of this magnitude that's going on, and why, with that perspective, help people understand why it is so important that we seize this opportunity?
Well, this is a great opportunity to kind of get ahead of this physical readiness concern that has been plaguing the Guard, even active duty, for some time. The threats to physical readiness, the biggest threats that I know of that have been brought to attention, obviously physical injuries, musculoskeletal injuries, obesity concerns, APFT, ACFT failures. These things are systemic, and if we ever want to get control of that, then we need to develop a cultural change that develops fitness and wellness into everyday life. This has got to be part of the military culture. It's got to be part of their doctrines, their teaching, their training. Routinely, we'll have soldiers come in to the Life Fit course that have never received any type of physical fitness training. They just, it was never their background. It was never their interest, and it has become a challenge over the time throughout their first initial 6 years to where they don't know what to do. They need help. And so, again, I think it's very important to address these things early, and you start to see communication from recruiting command. You're seeing this in basic training, where more of these soldiers are getting training in this early at the very beginning of their career. And so now it's up to us as they enter that unit to establish this and maintain it throughout their career as a soldier. If they don't, things will just go back to normal. We've always heard of the additive, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. And so the opportunity now is to provide change in the physical realm, physical readiness realm, create that domain, make it a prominent domain of total force fitness that needs to be looked at. And I think, again, in the long run, as we continue to provide these things and we provide the policies and we're creative in bringing soldiers through these programs, then they'll start to engage in have that be a normal part of their life and normal part of their long-term change in lifestyle.
Absolutely.
So I guess kind of my question is, you guys have already built quite a program there and got a jump start on it with the ForceCom pilot program. What is your advice to those states and leaders who are looking to implement H2F within their state, and they want to take some of your, I guess, lessons learned as they're going into it?
I would let those leaders know that we're always here. They can always reach out to us in the Indiana National Guard, and myself and Lieutenant Hudson and our state MFT, Sergeant First Class Alan Vonderheide. They've been such a huge part of all of this, and understand these programs so well that they just would be happy to help any other state that's getting initiated.
So, Mr. Harper, thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your experience here, specifically for this ForceCom pilot program, but also, just how you've really taken a unique approach to implementing H2F. We're going to be moving over into more internal programs, talking to Washington and Kentucky Army National Guard up next.
Yeah, and sir, appreciate everything you've done in your state, all the resources you provide to the other states. And, from the NGB team here, definitely keep up the great work. And we appreciate, everything that you're doing there to help the force.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. And we look forward to future discussions on H2F.
So with us talking internal applications to H2F is Captain Sims from Washington Army National Guard and Staff Sergeant Casey from Kentucky Army National Guard. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
So you guys have both taken this approach of, using an internal solution to working H2F. I'm sure that requires a lot of creativity. Captain Sims, do you want to head this one off and kind of give us a quick overview of how your internal approach to implementing H2F works?
Yeah, it's been really interesting and exciting at the same time. A lot of the initial groundwork that we've done has been trying to identify resources that we already have, so that we're not working parallel lines of effort, and seeing what the state already has put into place and what the DoD and maybe other entities have put into place that meet the same guidelines as H2F, to kind of give us a jump start on building programs in education around the austere environment that the National Guard finds itself in, to try to build autonomy in those programs. And then what's missing? What do we need? And I think most people can say that subject matter experts are probably and facilities are probably the two biggest things, along with funding, that just aren't quite there yet. But we do have lots of leeway in being able to provide education, meet up with soldiers, and give them something more of like what an Army Wellness Center would give them on a case-by-case basis and then unit-by-unit basis.
Yeah, our program started out actually a couple years prior to the initial rollout of H2F. It ended up being one of those things where you do a data analysis in the state of what do you need help with, and most of the time it's PT, and that's a big thing for Compo 2 is trying to overcome that. So Lieutenant Colonel Simpson and now retired Master Sergeant Taney started working together to put together this program, as we call Axe Camp. And what it was designed is the design to target the, PT height weight failures that we had across the state, identify that, bring them in, and educate them on fitness, resiliency, nutrition. And it's a big 4-day class that really highlights all that. And then H2F started to become a talking point, and our program by default lined up with the several components of H2F. So right now we're just looking at taking our program and adding to it to make it fit the holistic model for H2F. So
I guess while we have you, Sergeant Casey, right here, talking about facilities, I know that's something that Captain Sims mentioned as well. I guess how has that looked as far as the development of facilities or those resources? Has it been more focused on, I guess, that education piece that you were just alluding to, or is it taking the approach of resources for soldiers to be able to utilize for XYZ?
yeah, we host many of camps at the Joint Force Headquarters, Boone National Guard Center, and there we've taken an old hangar and turned it into a $1 million gym that facilitates a place where we host the camps, as well as um, they can resource any of the G shops that may need to be utilized for these in-day soldiers coming up. So if we get a soldier, in a course that may need help with something, we have everything we need right there to facilitate that for the soldier. And and provide that for them.
I think that there's a misnomer out there that, hey, we need to build all these brand new shiny buildings and, create something from scratch and all that. Could you speak to how much of a benefit it was to just take an existing building and refit it, to basically get to the same end state?
Yeah, absolutely. I know when they were looking at that, aviation was building a brand new center in the back of Boone National Guard Center there, and I mean, you're looking at a multi-million dollar budget to stand up a gym. So when they started looking at this hangar and started doing the data analysis on it and the dimensions and refitting it, they determined that, hey, we can make this work for a gym, and so then that's when it all got started, and they started working on just taking the old hangar and turning it into what it is now.
Yeah, that's great. And it, ultimately resulted in basically multi-million dollar savings, which is, the type of innovation and the innovative solutions that we're looking for H2F implementation in the Guard.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to Captain Sims, you briefly mentioned facilities as well. Do you want to highlight kind of what your state's looking at for that?
Yeah, we're fortunate on one end to have, we teach the MFT course up here. So our schoolhouse has two fitness labs, I guess you could say, that we use for our MFT course. So one is right in the middle of the state in Yakima at the Yakima Training Center. And then one right now is being built out on Camp Murray, which is our state headquarters. The other things we look at, so looking at facilities has been about a 2-year process for us, and how we were going to implement warrior performance and resiliency centers across the state at the most cost-effective way possible, with the tools that the soldiers would need to be able to do like warfighter movements, or the movements that would increase their ability to perform warrior task battle drills without injury, and then also be able to do their job while they're at a high op tempo, or anything the soldiers have to do. Like looking over the past 18 months, that makes sense, right? So having the ability to, at their home station or wherever their company drills, or if they're having a battalion or larger level event, where could they practice those warfighter movements that mimic warrior task battle drills, to be able to then go out in the field and do those without injury. So we knew we had those two labs. The next step was using the tools at our disposal, which happened to be the ACFT, and getting that equipment out to the local armories, and then setting up their own kind of detachment warrior performance and resiliency center that they can use on drill weekends. They can put an MFT in there, an MRT. They can go over their cognitive performance, their mindfulness-based mental fitness training. They can go through with MFT on good movement, speed, strength, muscular endurance, jumping, landing, anything that you would need to do as far as being a soldier. And then on a bigger level, looking at taking, very similar to what Sergeant Casey was talking about, taking a facility we already have and fitting it into the bigger picture. So one of our buildings we're looking at Camp Murray would have an area for indoor ACFT training or ACFT testing, and then a larger kind of performance center that would be more your traditional strength conditioning center and functional fitness outlet. And that process, working with the vendors and putting in cost estimates and having those go through the process, and the state's just been awesome. Everyone has been so supportive as far as purchasing goes, and making sure that we're getting the right contracts with the right people that include everything. So that's been about a 2-year process that's finally coming to fruition right now, this FY. So it's kind of exciting to see some of those things getting put into place, and have places for soldiers to be able to go do the things that they need to do to be, happy and healthy and hungry for this life.
And something that we've asked some of the other groups is, there are people out there that think that, H2F should be kind of more of a standard issue across the board and should just arrive at your doorstep ready made. If you could both, we'll start with you, Captain Sims, if you could talk about the benefit from your seat of developing a needs-based program for your state, more of a grassroots campaign. What has the benefit to that been from your standpoint?
Yeah, I felt that at first. It was when we were looking at building H2F, because I would say a lot of us who got into the ACFT project officer job were kind of looking forward to the bigger picture, which is H2F. And at first it was very easy to kind of want these left and right limits. Like, what are my left and right limits? Just give me an outline and let me fill in the blanks. But talking with other states and kind of seeing the different demographics, the different locations, some states, of course, have a much larger population. The missions are different, battalions, brigades, all the MSC levels, the directorates are all just a little bit different. So just like you would an athlete. So if you're a coach and you have a facility, you're probably not doing group designs. So you wouldn't do a templated workout for everyone in that facility. You wouldn't do templated nutrition. You wouldn't do templated cognitive performance or mindfulness training. You would individualize each one of those aspects into your athlete's program design. And the same thing goes for the states. Like, really looking at each unit individually and understanding what your needs and then what each unit needs. The soldiers within that unit, what they need, and how to best resource them so that they can do their job, their civilian job, and be happy and healthy that way. But then also come to the high op tempo that we're facing in the National Guard, and it's not going to slow down, and be healthy and happy in that role also. So that on the back end, you've made this program specific to the needs of the human beings in your state, the tactical athletes in your state, the leadership in your state, the annual plan, the 2-year plan, the larger strategic planning. When you start thinking 5-10 years out, what does this look like? You can really make it successful, consistent, and sustainable for everyone involved. And then you have that maybe on the back end, your soldiers, when they're done with their very long career, and the new recruits that come in, they are better for it. They say that the Army National Guard gave me the tools to be strong, perform well long past retirement. It all starts with making sure that you have an individualized program for your state. So I definitely see that now, and the benefits to that.
Awesome. Sergeant Casey, over to you.
These soldiers get hungry for what can I do? Because my situation, it might not be the same as somebody else's. So what ultimately happens is they just reach out to the cadre, and we work with them, and more often than not ends up being that one-on-one experience back and forth with us to help them in their daily, because you might have a nurse that works swing shift, and then somebody that's a factory worker. And so you got two different lifestyles of living, and two different times. It might be, 3 12-hour shifts in a day, and the factory worker might be working, you know, 6 12s. And so what that ends up looking like is um, what can I do with this little bit of time that I may have to put forward to make myself a better soldier and a better mom, dad, brother, sister, and so it all ultimately ends up being a one-on-one experience when we get done with this thing. And the big takeaway that we always hope to impact on the soldiers is that they make this change because they want to make it, and they want their lives to be better for it. And as Captain Sims referred to, is my big thing is I want you to take off the uniform, and I don't want that to be the end of you. I want another career for you at the end of that, so that way you can go and prosper. And a lot of us like to say that this is just a hobby right now, and the real job starts when we take it off and retire. And ultimately, I feel like that's our goal. And everybody sitting in our seats right now, I think, can speak for most of us that that's what we like to see more than not. So I think that one-on-one experience is huge and valuable. And when the soldier sees that you care that much about them, to take that time to sit down and be like, all right, um, you're not able to have a couple hours in the gym or an hour in the gym, but we can get 15, 20, 30 minutes of your day. And here's what we can do with that to maximize your time and efforts, and what it's going to give to you going forward. With our program in our state, when Lieutenant Colonel Simpson wrote the program, him and Master Sergeant in the beginning, I think the ideal for it was to give something to these soldiers that was uh, easy to take away and take home, and being in guidelines of left and right limits of a normal Army doctrine per se of saying, like we don't do things unless it comes in an order, right? You will do this, you will do that. Our program's a little bit more flexy and as far as how we design it and what we do inside of it as far as like the training schedule goes for it. So it's constantly changing, constantly adding to it and changing it, and we have the flexibility for that. I was under the same impression sitting in this seat with, as Captain Sims referred to earlier on, all right, what are my left and right limits? What can I do? What can I not do? And and frankly, it's honestly have to take a step back and look at, well, what does the state need? What do our soldiers in the Kentucky National Guard? What are their needs right now? And we run that data analysis and try to each class identify something that that class has different than the other that we might want to highlight more in this upcoming course, such as maybe we need to pour in some more resiliency courses or classes than the last class, because this one has some outlying factors that gives that that calls to it per se, I guess, if you know what I mean? And we might need to highlight suicide awareness because there's some of that going on, and we need to address it. So each class is unique to its own, and each one of them is different in that. And there's been classes too as well that that we have leaders in there that doesn't necessarily need to pass a PT test or a height and weight test, but they want another tool for their tool bag. So they come through it. They are not necessarily SMEs as we are, but it's a tool for their tool bag that when their Joe says, hey Sergeant, I'm struggling with finding ways to stay on my PT, that sergeant has a way to say, well, here's what I picked up from the Axe camp and some things that I've learned, and can we try this and try that? And if it gets over their head, then they can reach out to us, and we can help further that. As MFTs, that's kind of our duty and our job anyways. So it's been really, really cool. But like I said, each class is unique to its own, and we have to address that coming into it on as far as identifying what those soldiers need from us and what can we provide them. And we want to be able to provide them with as much resources as we possibly can, so that way we can get them all the tools they need to be successful going forward.
And so, just to kind of ask a question of both of you again, we'll start with Captain Sims. If you're a new project officer, or if you're a team in a state somewhere that's sitting down at the table and getting ready to develop an H2F program, or determine what your requirements are for your state, what's some of the best advice that you could give them based on creating these internal programs from scratch on your own, and help them get pointed in the right direction?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would do a needs analysis. So just like you're doing anything else, I would do a needs analysis on your state. I would see what units you have. I would look at their annual plans and what their op tempo is. I'd pull up the data on your state from the health of the Army National Guard force, and kind of see what your numbers are there. And then I would build a needs analysis, and based on that needs analysis, I would start looking at the resources you already have through your Joint Services Support Group. Look on the air side of things and see what resources they have that might help you. Look at your state as a whole entity, and try to get an idea of what you can implement right now that's available to you. Sites like HPRC-online that's provided, that's a total force fitness site. It has tons of resource and knowledge and education on it. Other CHAMP sites like Operation Supplement Safety. I would look at who your behavioral health is, who your suicide prevention group is, your state MRT. Some states have a state MFT, so who that is. I would start to incorporate all of those things. I call it kicking bushes. So once you have your needs analysis, you can just start going and kicking bushes and see what flies out. What's there for you to utilize? What programs can you improve? What programs can you implement? And then you can really get a sense of what your facilities are, what your units op tempos are, what personnel you have, what states of health they're in, and then the social media thing is huge. That we were using our MFT page for a while. We just did the same thing. We switched to a WPR Instagram page, and we're putting content out there on warfighter movements and how to self-program those. So the sooner you can get that content and those resources and get it out to the soldiers and start getting buy-in, strategically, not just chaotically, but based on an actual plan that comes from a needs analysis, I think is your best bet. And that it just gives you'll have really strong, sustainable growth from that. And from that, you can start to build other programs, and you'll know what to do, and you'll be able to spend money a little bit wiser when that starts to come, or if you have any left over.
Sergeant Casey, over to you.
Yeah, just to piggyback off Captain Sims, absolutely. That's kind of what we always start with things, when uh, you're laying things out, right? So 8-step program, 8-step model, right? Recon. So needs analysis. What do we need in the state? How can we facilitate this? Who's going to uh, who is best fitted to help us facilitate that and bring it all together and execute the plan, assess, and then retrain. So that's huge, but it takes some time doing the the kick in the bushes, as Kenson says, right? It takes some time to do that. You really got to dig in, and but it's one of those things that takes some time to really dig in and see what your state needs by running all those data pools, and you'll be better for it in the long run. You'll be able to provide the correct resources instead of just throwing darts in a barrel.
Absolutely. And I love that you referenced the 8-step training model, probably one of the least known documents in the Army. It's a good tool.
So, Captain Sims, back over to you. You mentioned soldier buy-in a little bit. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the H2F program implementation that you've done so far, and what benefits have soldiers seen within your state?
So the context right now is we have an enormous amount of service members who are deploying, who have been deployed, continue to be activated stateside to serve their communities and their neighborhoods and the life and liberty of this country. And they're pretty stressed out. So when we can get those touch points, when we can contact them, when we can educate their leaders or get them into virtual classes or do these podcasts or be live, it gives them some resources, and every little resource counts. Maybe it's just how to manage your stress. Maybe it's on, how to be mindful while you eat. Maybe it's on warfighter movements. It really could be any small snippet of education and knowledge is going to help them mitigate what they're going through as far as having so much of their bucket just full and overflowing and not being able to have good tools to manage that. And then, maybe they get a tool where they can mitigate some of those stress and empty out some of their bucket and then learn how to recover from and respond to those stressors a little bit better. So our buy-in's been really good. A lot of our courses are just starting up this year. It took us about 18 months to build some of those. So it's more like a menu item that we got the idea from places like O2X and in Indiana and Florida. And we offer that to the units as far as training coaches and training soldiers on nourishment and warfighter movements and how to program for themselves, mindfulness training, how to incorporate that and cognitive performance in their training. 1, 2, 3-day courses, virtual courses, live sessions, question and answers. Like Sergeant Casey said, it's just making everything available, whether it's virtual, whether it's in person, whether it's in a chat conversation on Teams or any platform we can reach, anything we can do. That seems to be working rather well.
Sergeant Casey, do you have anything to add to that related to, soldier buy-in and some of the benefits you've seen?
Yeah, soldier buy-in's a huge one. We talk. I'm instructing an instructor's course right now, and in the instructor's course, you talk about soldiers want to know the why. Why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why am I doing this training? And that's it's kind of the new era of soldiers. I remember in my early days, you just executed. But the more buy-in to get, the better off you're going to be for that soldier taking that tangible something that they are looking for away with them. So for us, there's some stigma around what we call the axe camp, and then on the day one, we usually get about halfway through it, and that usually is squashed. And like Captain Sim says, our guys are stretched thin too. I mean, they've just been at a crazy high tempo this year with everything that we've got going on, and going from civilian life to being on orders to back and forth, and so having those resources that we provide for them ready available is huge. I honestly, I can't wait to kick back off and get back on again. I know the Joes are need it. They need that those resources available to them, but it's the buy-in, getting in the buy-in on what you're providing them, and knowing that what you're providing them is going to help them not only here and now but down the future. I think that's a huge one too, and Kevin Sims touched on it. That future use for them is huge. So the takeaway for here and now is awesome and great, but them knowing that what you're giving them can take them beyond the uniform. I think that's second to none, to be honest with you, as far as what a state can provide when they're starting to look at building their programs.
Captain Sims, if you could just talk to the states and the project officers a little bit about some of the intrinsic value of being part of, this massive cultural change. I mean, this is really changing history in the Army, changing history in the Guard. It's something that's never really been done or implemented on this scale. And just talk about kind of what gets you going every day and fires up your passion to work on this project, and maybe light a few fires out there for everybody else that's working on H2F.
Yeah, that's a huge piece. So I just feel lucky every day to be able to be doing what I'm doing. I've been in the Washington Army National Guard for over 22 years, and I have a lot of friends that are retired that are going through some challenges. I've lost a lot of friends either to suicide or to chronic illness that were National Guard, that are National Guard members, retired National Guard members. Several friends I've deployed with, have difficulty with a lot of the struggles that we would imagine with mental health and with obesity and chronic illness and musculoskeletal injury. And it's hard. It's hard to see them suffer. And frankly, when I started doing this years ago to try to help the military members I served with, it was because I was sick of seeing my friends die. And this population, as far as a coach goes, I've been coaching for 15 years, and this population is the most important to me. Many of our members also serve the fire or EMS industry. They're law enforcement officers. They're healthcare workers. So they carry that stress with them also along with this. And all of those, the studies are very clear on the chronic illnesses that come along with that: anxiety, depression, problems with sleep, hormonal problems, metabolic disorders, and a lot of this, if this was available, I think we would be better. I think we would be stronger. I think with my people, my tribe, my soldiers that I served with, and military members that I know, and veterans that I know, I think if they would have known this, they would be happy and healthy and hungry for life, and not in pain, and not fighting anxiety and depression and obesity and chronic illness every day. I'm not saying that's everyone, but that's why I'm passionate. I'm passionate to give this to our soldiers, so that the time that they served, the time that they put in, meant something on the back end to them, so they can toss their grandkids in the air. So at 70, they don't anything but normal aches and pains of being 70. So that they can enjoy a long life with family and loved ones, second careers, travel, hobbies. And this provides it to them. This is, go back to buy-in. I think people, when they see these programs, just think it's another military program that was made up. All of this is based on civilian strength conditioning, nourishment, cognitive performance, mental fitness. This has all been around for civilian populations, and it's specific for the tactical athlete. And we're able to provide that now, and it's being supported at the highest echelons of the military, to be able to make sure that you're psychologically, physically, socially, and spiritually resilient for the rest of your lifetime. So that if you so choose, when you're ready, you can walk into your grave. And instead of having, poor part of that end of life, one way or another. But it's rewarding to be able to provide that. That's what drives me. Do it and means something. It's nice to be part of something good.
Yeah, appreciate the backstory on that. And Sergeant Casey, go ahead.
Yeah, the fact that you're able to have a shot at just helping a soldier out every day fires me up. So the fact that this whole program is designed to not just affect one but many, man, that just kind of like puts gasoline on my fire, to be honest. And to piggyback off Captain Sims is, I think we all share some common things wearing this uniform. It gets heavy at times, and I think a lot of people need to understand that it's heavy for all of us. But if we're all in this together and we're all have these resources that are out there to help us uh, deal with them, and that it's okay that you identify that you need to help dealing with them, and and everybody's walking and living that same life as far as the holistic health and fitness and taking care of your body and your mental side of things. And and if you're struggling with something, it's fine. Like you seek that help, and you change it and be better for it going forward. So the fact that the army's decided that, hey, the just the ground and pound on our guys with all this stuff that comes with it it's important that as much as we go hard out in the field, that we also take care of ourselves on the back end. We might go hard out in the field for an FTX for a couple weeks, but on the back end of that, we need some time to recoup, recover, and then be able to recharge our batteries to go back out and do it again. And providing these resources is going to help soldiers to be able to do that. You might sustain an injury out there, and some day in time, it's like suck it up, and it'll be all right. And then it's a lingering injury that just causes other injuries. Whereas, as far as these programs are out there designed to say, hey, no, we need to get that fixed and addressed, and get you back to 100% and then back in the battle again. So I think it's crucial, and it's very, very, very important to me, and something that I'm super passionate about doing every single day. And like I said, if you can just help one soldier out, then it's worth it. And I've had the opportunity to help out. I can't even put a number on it. But yeah, it's just a lot. Really, I don't know if there's any words you can really put towards it that describes how much it means to be able to help somebody like that out.
Yeah, well, thank you both for coming on and sharing some of your experiences here and how you've taken this unique approach of implementing an internal H2F program and started leading the way with getting it off the ground.
Yeah, and from a like I said, on a personal note, appreciate all the hard work you guys have done informing us on what's going on there, what you guys are doing, and helping other states out as they do the same thing. And the Army National Guard is going to be a better place because of all the work that you guys are doing right now. So we sincerely appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So here we are again at the end of all this. So we've heard like a whirlwind of information today from various subject matter experts. I guess diving into some of what we've heard, what are some of the key takeaways that you would recommend to states that are maybe wanting to mesh some of these together, create a hybrid approach, or I guess what's some of your thoughts?
I think the initial thought is for anybody that's working on H2F in the states right now to kind of open their minds and imaginations on this project, because as you can see, these are multiple different approaches, multiple different ways of thinking about this problem and addressing the problems that they have internal to the state, but they're all getting to the same end state that works best for them. So, you're not going to see specific, somebody's not going to give you all the answers to the test on this one. It's going to be, the answers to the test are within your state and in those numbers and in that data. And so
and will states be able to get some of that data from the other states, or are you guys publishing that, or how does that work?
So all the stuff that we get from all the states is shared into the H2F SharePoint, which is shared across all the project officers and NCOs, and anybody that needs that, obviously feel free to reach out. So they have access to that. So we're working on a way to quantitatively analyze that data to show what the actual return on investment is. So that's coming as we're working through that process. But yeah, all that information is out there for the states to look at and pull best practices from. And the next thing that I would say is just determine, really get into the process and tackling and identifying what you need. So pull that data, get with, look at the health of the force report. There's an Army National Guard specific health of the force report, which a lot of people don't realize. It actually racks and stacks all the states against each other on wellness metrics. And you can actually go to your own state's page and see hey, here's how we're doing. Additionally, reaching out to your other branches and divisions within your state to pull data that they may have access to, whether it be through DTMS, working with your surgeon's office to look at profile data. What types of injuries are we having? What types of issues are we having with height, weight? Getting into that data and conducting an in-depth analysis on what the data shows and identifying their gaps that really become their requirements in the end. So, hey, we have this problem, we have this gap in coverage or tools for soldiers to use. And so now how do we fix that? And that is now a requirement for you to start your H2F program. Once they do that and they go through all their gap analysis and they identify all those things, basically it's just analyzing how much is it going to cost, what do we need, and that is your state requirement when it's all said and done.
Well, I feel like it's hard. It's just it's kind of like leader development. It's it's hard to sometimes draw the correlation between okay, we're investing money in this. For a private company, it might be a seminar or a coach or something, but it's how are we deriving, our in-state benefit, and I feel like H2F is in a lot of ways, some of the pieces of H2F are kind of like that. It's the correlations are challenging, but the end result is, you have a more healthy force, you have a force that wants to stay in the Guard, you have a force where your people flourish on the outside. So I guess, taking that approach to it, looking at it, I know we're working on developing resources through the H2F team here that are available to soldiers across the 54. What is that biggest thing that you've noticed, from all the programs that you're familiar working with that, keeps coming up as a recurring, challenge to be tackled?
I would say that a lot of times it's just getting, and Massachusetts hit on it perfectly, is getting that senior leader buy-in early and using that data to show what the issues are and then showing that there's solutions out there. And I think that if you can take, as you're working this project in your state, if you can take your ego and biases out of it and just look at what opportunities are out there and what solutions may be available, go into it with an open mind, and then really ensure that you're doing it in partnership with your senior leaders so that they're part of the journey, and with your soldiers. We've told the states that it's important to, and we talked about it, get that user acceptance and soldier buy-in, survey them, ask them what would you like to see? What would be beneficial to you as a soldier in the Army National Guard, and use those two inputs to help create your program.
And is this something that the units can begin kind of initiating too, I guess? We're talking a lot about the states implementing their program, but if let's say I'm a battalion commander, and have a good relationship with my local university? Is this something that like can be driven at the unit level to start to be like, okay, how can I, start to develop these relationships to then, work through a formal partnership with the state to be able to support my battalion?
Yeah, and absolutely. And I would say that the only advice I would offer with that is just make sure that you do it in concert with your H2F project officer or NCO, and ask for, if they've created a working group, ask for a seat at that table so that you can talk about whatever opportunities, because they may not even be aware that you have that connection, or that there's a college that's in your AO that is willing to help out your unit. So I think that that's great, and that way you're open to all these ideas coming in, and there's cross communication, and certain needs are getting identified at the unit level. And I think that would be a phenomenal course of action for any battalion commander. So the last piece of advice I'd give anybody working on H2F is just to realize the moment that we're in, and that this is history in the making for across the Army, and especially for the Army National Guard, because we've never had the opportunity to have something like this. So I would go into this project with that on your mind, so that you can literally be a part of history. Take that very seriously, be passionate about it, and you're basically changing soldiers' lives, for the foreseeable future. So I just hope everybody sees it that way, and seizes this opportunity to really create cultural change on a mass scale.
Well, we're going to do our part, right?
Yeah.
So
try our best.
So thank you, Captain Short, for coming on, and I know that we're going to do some more series coming up soon, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll get some information published out with the podcast here to get some resources available to soldiers or leaders across the formation.
Yeah, definitely. Appreciate that.
If you would like more information on any of the topics discussed today, please visit our social media pages in the links below. Tune in to Leaders Recon over the next few weeks as we bring in today's leaders and pioneers to discuss their experiences, share their wisdom, and help you grow as a leader. If you like this episode of Leaders Recon, please don't forget to subscribe below and leave us a 5-star review. You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.